I'm gonna reply to your video on your discussion on that Hill and Walt's answer to the question, how can a just God use a wicked nation like Babylon as his instrument for punishment? Do you agree or disagree, and why? So I watched your video and I thought you did a great job, by the way, and I'm gonna read what I typed down. Hilton and Walt's answer offer an insightful answer to this complex question. They highlight a few key points and they shed light on how God operates in the situation. God's sovereignty over the nations. Hilton and Walt argue that the key to understanding God's use of Babylon lies in recognizing God's absolute sovereignty over the nations, both the righteous and the wicked. While Babylon was wicked, it was still within God's control. No nation, no matter how powerful or sinful, exists outside of God's will. In this way, Babylon's rise to power and its role in punishing Israel were part of God's broader plan, even though Babylon itself was not aware of it. This highlights a fundamental biblical truth that God is sovereign over history. Even when evil forces are at work, God can use them as tools for his greater purpose. Hill and Walton argue that God can use a nation like Babylon, despite its sinfulness, as a part of his judgment on Judah. And then I also have another point. It says, Babylon as a tool of discipline, not a reward for the wickedness. Hill and Walton also emphasizes that God's use of Babylon as a tool of judgment was not a reward for Babylon's sin. Instead, it was a form of divine discipline directed toward his people of Israel. Judah had been given numerous chances to repent, but they had turned away from God. Another point, and this is my last point, was God's plan for redemption. Finally, Hill and Walton emphasizes that even his use of a wicked nation like Babylon, God was working out his plan of redemption. The exile of Babylon, through painful, became the crucible in which Israel's identity was refined. The Israelites were forced to confront their sins, their idolatry, and their disobedience. And through the point of exile and suffering, God would eventually bring his own people back to the land, purged of their adultery and sin. Now, if I would agree or disagree, I think I would agree, morely because I personally found their answer complaining for several reasons: the sovereignty of God, the purpose of discipline, and the balance of justice and mercy. Hilton and Walt's answer to the question of how a just God can use a wicked nation like Babylon is rooted in the understanding of God's sovereignty, his purpose and discipline, and his ultimate plan for redemption. I would agree with Hilton and Walt's explanation, as it helps reconcile the tension between God's justice and his mercy. It reminds us that God is in control of history and that even in moments of suffering and judgment, he is at work for the good of his people and the fulfillment of his redemptive plan.